morning, good afternoon, or wherever you are in the. Oh. Anyway, welcome to the third and last in a series of presentations from NAPIMA, the National Asian American Pacific Islander Mental Health Association. My name is DJ Rita. I'm Executive Director of NAPIMA, and this is Alison Gota, our Deputy Director. And we are very, very pleased that you're joining us again today. So basically what we're going to be doing is we'd like to start today off by showing you a video that was actually put together for us by Shannon Umatani and Keiko Ozaki in Denver. And they've really done a nice piece that really kind of gives you a little bit of a background about what NAPIMA is and what we have done. So we'd like to start off with that, and then we're going to do a little recap of what we've done this month. And then we really want to engage all of you in this session here. So again, thank you very much for joining us. And we're now going to show this video, and please enjoy. Can people see that we're having a little bit of technical difficulties at this end? And hopefully we're going to get running. Some of you may have seen this, but we want to show it again because there's some new people that are joining us today. And that Shannon and Keiko did this beautiful job. And this is just some of the work that we're doing. And for future projects, we would love for those of you who would like to come join us. So we're just waiting.
When I was 16,
a second.
my despair tugged at my legs, pulling me under the surface, drowning me as I gasped for air, for a reason to live, for a way out of the abyss. I believed that I was worthless, unworthy of love, so broken that no repair was possible, so broken that I knew my life was not worth living. I've struggled with depression a lot of my life. In high school, in my senior year, I attempted suicide. I genetically am predisposed to having depression. But it also, it was SATs, it was pre-college, it was all the stresses of being a teenager, and then being Asian American in the context of a white community. In my 30s, when I went into this deep, deep depression, I was suicidal probably for 10 years. And it feels like there's no way out. That's the thing that's so frightening. It's like, well, how am I gonna get out of this? Doing work in the mental health field, in the Asian American community, that gives me purpose to wake up in the morning.
When I first heard Petta speak, it really, really touched my heart, and it really moved me. When you hear somebody like Petta tell their story, there's this feeling of, I get it. She's telling my story. And if she can do it, I can do it. And that's the most empowering thing. It's like, I don't either need to be ashamed of or afraid. And that is, I think, the best gift we can give somebody is a sense of being whole. NAPIMA stands for the National Asian American Pacific Islander Mental Health Association. And NAPIMA was really formed as a way to really advocate for and to improve the quality of health, particularly looking at the impact that mental health has on our overall health. And it was really specifically for the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. Oftentimes people don't think that our communities have problems because we don't show up in the system, but we really define mental health very, very differently from a cultural standpoint. But like a lot of communities, there's the shame.
If someone had said to me, I really want to know how you feel, and just listened, that would have made a huge difference, huge. But we're always like, oh, it's okay, just buck up. It's not shameful to get help. It's not shameful to have a condition.
Some of the things that NAPIMA has done to really sort of broaden the awareness around mental health, one of it is achieving whole health, and it's looking at mental health through the lens of the relationship between the body, the mind, and the spirit.
Well, this is so interesting.
I was very lucky to be part of that program. It went from, okay, all of these things are connected, to how can we really help ourselves? And that was really powerful. At this point in my life, I am able to bring my whole self to the table. And that has to do with a lot of things. In part, it has to do with accepting myself. That's something that NAPIMA has personally given me, is a place to be able to be fully myself and make a difference at the same time. I'm a leader, I'm a trainer, I'm a mother and a friend and all these other things that I am.
I would hope that we'd continue to grow and that we can sort of expand on what we're doing and that we can really have a positive impact on the way that mental health is looked at within not only the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities, but I think with mental health as a whole around the country.
It's important to be able to have a wider view and realize that mental health really affects all of us in so many ways. And as Asian Americans, I think that's a message we really need to hear. Healing is not easy. There's no quick fix, no duct tape to stick the pieces of my mind together. It was more of a decision or an idea that I felt I had no choice but to follow. How do you fix a broken mind? Decide that life is the only possible choice.
First, I'd like to thank Peta Suyamoto for sharing her story. Peta is just an amazing woman, and she's going to be heading up our new revised NAPI, the National Asian American Pacific Islander Empowerment Network. And I really join all of you, or ask all of you to join us in this effort to really raise the voice of those with lived experience, and that could be any of us. And so, and then also, again, thank you to Shannon and Keiko for putting that together. So it gives you just kind of an overview of what NAPIMA is all about and the things that we're trying to accomplish. So we started off this month, which is both a celebration of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, but it's also to honor and recognize that May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we started off this month, this celebration on May 10th, which we were very, very proud to take the lead with Change Matrix in getting May 10th designated as National Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Day. And we're very, very grateful to Representative Chu and other members of Congress who have voted for this resolution. It was first presented, this is very historic, it's never been done before. Last year, Representative Chu presented this before Congress, and this year we're celebrating the first anniversary. And we're asking each and every one of you to join us as we're going state by state to be able to get more and more states to be able to pass this resolution. And the resolution is meant to be more than just having an awareness for a day. It really is to get our legislators, people in decision-making policies, to be able to look at this and say, there are needs that are out there. Asian American, Native and Pacific Islanders are a diverse population. And the way that they identify mental health, the way that they heal, really varies from community to community. So we really join you. We ask you to join us in that effort. You can go to our website to get more information. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison, who is then going to tell you about another project. Allison?
Yeah, so our second session, you can find both of the videos of the presentations on our website soon and also on our YouTube channel. But the second presentation we did was talking about Heart's Hope, which is a project that really focuses on healing through the arts. This project was launched last year by Asians in Focus, which is a group that's supported by NAPIMA. The project was started with a generous donation from the Savello family in honor of Nicholas Fatu Savello, who died by suicide at the age of 18. And we also received some funding to support from the Center for Psychology and Culture at the University of Michigan to specifically honor Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander artists. So for our second event, we celebrated these artists. We had a really amazing panel of some of the folks that submitted their artwork to the Heart's Hope Project and had a great conversation about how art is part of their healing journey around mental health and suicide, and to raise suicide awareness and prevention. So really invite you to check out these videos if you have a chance, and to check out our website at asiansinfocus.com, where you can find more about Heart's Hope. You're still able to submit art projects. So if that's something that you are interested in, we'd be happy to have folks participate, and then we can add you to our website and our gallery. So yeah, please check those videos out. And I'll turn it back to DJ to kind of lead us through the conversation today.
What we really want to do today is we want to really engage the community. So the first one was hearing from representatives from Hawaii, from excuse me, my apologies for this little cough here, from others who really talked about what community-based organizations and private practitioners are doing to address the mental health crisis that we're seeing in this country, and about the resolution. The second one was about the Hearts Hope Project. We really wanted to wrap the third event up for this month with really engaging all of you. And this by no means is the end of it, but NAPIMA is very, very invested in being able to talk with the community and really hearing what you're interested in. So we're going to do a little Jamboard, and we'd like for people to just go in and just talk about first, what are the key issues that you're seeing? What are the concerns that you have around mental health? And so we're going to just take for a few minutes for all of you to go into the chat and just make a few comments, and we're going to record those. And then we're going to come back and say, what would you like to see different? What are some of the healing practices? And the other part that we're really looking forward to is if there's any projects that some of you are working on. I know some of you are representing community-based organizations. You may be just working with the communities in different ways. This is a chance for NAPIMA to hear from each of you. And that's really what the intent of today is all about. So as we finish and we move into as we're finishing up May, it's kind of how can we collectively, NAPIMA working with the communities to really take this whole vision of changing what mental health is and how we address it to really reflect your issues. So if we could just have people start going in and just logging in, what are the key issues? We're going to start up with that one. We'll look at that first, and then we'll go on to what are the things you'd like to see changed, maybe some things that you have done that are really, and maybe the first one is the problems.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah.
just want to give
Oh.
everybody a quick tutorial.
Thanks.
You've never used Jamboard before. So on the left here, great, people already added stickies, but on the left here,
Yes.
there's a sticky note function. So if you just click that, this will pop up, and you can change to fun colors if you'd like. And if you type something, all you have to do is hit save, and then it pops up on the board. So yeah, like DJ said, we'll take a few minutes just to answer this first question. What do you see as the most important mental health issues right now?
This is good. And I like what people are putting up there. This is,
And if folks are unable to access the Jamboard for any reason, please feel free to add your thoughts into the chat, and I'm happy to add sticky notes for folks that way as well. Or you can also speak them, and I'm happy to write them down.
any way that we get your input,
Yeah.
that's happy for us. We're going to actually hold on to these because we do pay very close attention to what the community tells us. NAPIMA has always worked very closely with communities. A lot of the programs we've developed was based specifically on what all of you told us we wanted to do. And plus our own experience working directly with the community, providing direct services, working on policies that address the stigma, children, mental health issues, corrosive influence on social media, lack of adequate Medicaid reimbursement, lack of data. These are great. Access for the underrepresented, impact of hate incidents. Boy, these are good. Access to services. We're going to go through each one of these, but I'm just kind of reading them as they're coming up. But we want to just kind of go through to really pay respect to each and every one. So let's just take maybe one more minute. These are really excellent. There's some really challenging issues that are coming up and that we're seeing and talking to our colleagues around the country of how they're dealing with school issues, with people going back to work, the anti-hate. Let me see if we can maybe kind of group some of these. So we've got the corrosive influence of social impact of hate. I think we'll sort of start, oh good, there's another one coming in. A few counselors, therapists, that goes in the sort of the workforce category. These are all really key issues that NAPIMA is currently working on and hoping to be able to sort of expand our resources to address exactly what you're showing us right now. Addressing stigma, that's probably one of the key issues there. And a lot of the reasons when we talk about the stigma around mental health, and if any of you, please feel free, this is meant to be interactive, and everybody's been on tons of virtual calls and everything. One of the challenges is that if you're in person, you just raise your hand, you just sort of speak out. Do the same thing here on the virtual. feel free to just raise your hand and we'll call in if you want to ask something. But actually, I'm going to ask, what do you think? What causes the stigma? Because this is really, really core, and it isn't necessarily the cause for some of these other issues, but it really is one of the problems, and it's related to all of them about why we don't talk about it. Is there anybody just want to say, why do we have such stigma around mental health? And it's kind of maybe a little bit hard, I think, and you can put things in the chat, but I just want to make sure that we can keep the conversation moving. But part of it is we have this negative connotation that if you have a mental health problem, there's something wrong with you, that you're weak. And that's why we did that video with Pata, because it shows somebody who at one time had contemplated suicide, who had been in the depths of depression, but yet she's an incredibly accomplished, competent woman with a PhD who has done so much work. So it needs to redefine the face of mental health. Mm-hmm. That from a cultural standpoint, that you've somehow shamed the community. If there's one good thing about COVID, and I have to really stretch to think about what's good about COVID, it raised the fact that mental health can happen to anybody. It isn't something that belongs to others or impacts others. Everybody is impacted by it. Nobody's immune to frustration, to pain. Oh, we're seeing another one that says this, the military men, certain ethnic groups, you don't want to be seen as weak, and that's really true. Acknowledging mental health in children may also be perceived as poor parents. Let me see. If we can pull that whole comment up. This is great. Yes, these are really, really important things. I remember doing family work and working with children. The parents were afraid to come in because they'd be seen as being bad parents, or social services. There are so many issues there, and what we're seeing right now, and the research is just beginning to come in, but we know that children and the pandemic has had a really profound impact on their own mental health and well-being, their sense of stress. Parents themselves are stressed. It's a natural reaction to everything that we've been through. If you're foreign born, you're a refugee or an immigrant, it makes it very hard to be able to attend to your children the ways that you're not bad parents, but it's looking at the whole situation there. More people should speak up and let others know how reaching out and getting therapy have helped them. Exactly. There is being able to talk to somebody is really, really key. It can be really cathartic. And oftentimes people think it's being weak. I believe it's just the opposite. When you feel like no, I know that if I get help, I can be a better me, a stronger me, and I can do the things that I want to do and need to do, and I can be there for others. And sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, I can't do it alone. So going out, acknowledging there's a problem, talking to others, finding solutions, and then being creative. There's some people that may not be comfortable doing talk therapy. I believe absolutely part of talk therapy for some of our communities, because of language barriers, cultural differences, there are other ways of healing. So we did our Achieving Whole Health. You heal through looking at, it could be walking, eating, because you don't separate the mind and the body. And we tend to do that in the Western world, where if you got a stomachache, you go see the physician. If you're depressed, you go see your therapist. Oftentimes the two are very closely related. So it really is looking at different ways that we're healing. These are really, really good comments. And I appreciate these very, very much. So just kind of, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, it just looks like, we have like some categories of around youth, and also lack of data and lack of disaggregated data, which I know is something that we've had a lot of conversations with organizations around the country in terms of kind of limiting their ability to serve and also advocate for their communities. And just like, again, access to services and workforce development. Just definitely something the team is working on with other organizations across the country. And yeah, just obviously the increased amount of hate that has happened as a result of the pandemic and rhetoric around the pandemic. So I think these are really great. And I want to move us to maybe our next question.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to the one thing about the lack of disaggregated data, and then we're going to move on. But one of the reasons why, if you've ever filled out for your ethnicity thing, I always says Asian Americans, the experience for a fourth generation biracial individual is going to be radically different from a refugee who just came, or came as a young child, or a second generation is experiencing secondary trauma. If we don't understand by disaggregating the data, it's very, very difficult, one, to show the depth and the breadth of the problems that we're having, which has direct implications for what we do to solve those problems. And again, as Allison was saying, the rise in Asian hate. So as we're moving on, because we really, again, thank you so much. These are wonderful, wonderful comments. What solutions would you like to see? What either it's your wish list or things that you've seen actually work? So we would like, and I'm gonna let Allison take the lead on this one.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, folks can just navigate to that second board and start adding sticky notes around. Yeah, if you're able to kind of dream about what solutions you'd like to see, like what are things you've thought of. Like DJ said, what are things that you've witnessed work?
This one might be a little trickier, but somebody had talked about going to see a therapist. That's one possibility. But what other things? Okay, specific workforce, increased collaboration. Oh, this is good now they're coming in. Can you open that up a little bit? Thank you. It says specific workforce strategies for API communities to encourage individuals to enter the mental health, get into the pipeline.
Yeah, that's like, maybe we can just wait for people to, and then we can go over them. Yeah, like, looks like there's some things about collaboration, partnering, with organizations that maybe we don't typically think about partnering with. Yeah, exactly. Giving examples of successful outcomes to counteract the stigma. So really raising that awareness. Yeah, specific workforce strategies. That's really great. Increased collaboration between private practice and community mental health, sharing the wealth of info to further destigmatize mental health. Partnership between AAPI organizations and LGBTQ organizations. Yeah, I don't think we think or see that often enough. Outreach to non-English speaking communities. So thinking about, what kind of workforce we need to develop to be able to provide those services to folks. Increasing publicity about mental health awareness and different kinds of organization. Yeah, definitely just continuing to talk about it and raise awareness around those things. Yeah, advocacy for translation and reimbursement rates for in-language services. That's a really big one. So what are ways that we can make sure that, trainings or things like that are accessible to folks? And also how can folks get reimbursed for that type of work? Yeah, companies providing free mental health days to their employees. So what are ways we can advocate for that within our own companies? Funding to lower costs of mental health resources and therapy for lower income folks. Yeah, definitely. And then funding and outreach to API communities to encourage them to go into the mental health field. Yeah, so what are ways that we can work with young people to bring them into the world of mental health?
These are really good. The thing about the language is really, really critical because 2/3 of the Asian Americans are either foreign born, have at least one foreign born parent. English is not their primary language. And even if you talk to somebody and they appear to be speaking, English fairly well, that doesn't mean that they're able to express themselves and be able to articulate what the issues are. And that tend to be done in the native language. We see far too often is they use children to interpret. Please, please, please do not use children. And there are times and again, because of the system, we don't have enough trained interpreters and you're forced to do that. But that gets back to, as we're broadening what the mental health workforce looks like, you need to have trained interpreters, particularly work in the mental health arena, because they're very special issues in terms of look at the dynamics when you are interpreting for somebody who's experienced trauma, possibly, abuse of whatever kind. If you aren't trained properly, you're not going to get a good interpretation. And what's going to rest on that is how you assess what's going on, which leads directly to whatever intervention strategy that you have. The interpreter plays a key role in being able to communicate effectively. So I just really want to sort of really highlight that one, because people don't realize how important it is. I've got a kid, or I'll grab somebody down the hall who speaks the language. Advocate for getting more trained interpreters. You actually, by Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, you have a right to do it. And so if you receive federal dollars, you can command, say, look, I know that I have a right to do that. It's written in the laws. So
Yeah, should we move on to the last question, just so we have time for the discussion with folks?
yeah, I think so. Maybe
Yeah.
if there's anything there, I would just like to ask on this one, what are the things that you have done? Because I think we're going to have some decent time for the discussion. But what are the things that you do that just makes you feel good? Because that's part of healing. And that's sort of related to this. Anybody? Because we do have talk therapy, but we know for a fact that when people just go for a walk, they listen to music. So these are really, really good systems issues. And those are really, really important, because oftentimes we talk about mental health at the one-on-one, the individual level. Many of both the problems and the solutions occur systemically, right, at the systems level. And so it's being able to do outreach. It's being able to, collaborate and bring different partners together. So I want you to stop and think, because these are really good. Who would you like to collaborate with? Because oftentimes with businesses, small communities, get them engaged in activities, the schools, the police department, social services. Really want you to think about who you would like to partner with. So just kind of curious if anybody would like to just maybe get up a new screen. I just want to see what people do just to feel better. Let's do a new one. Yeah, this is going to be one. So what do you do personally? Those were excellent, excellent recommendations, and we're marking down all of these. But I'm always very curious what each of you do for your own self-care. Because I know all of you do something. So it could be, what do you do for fun? What do you do? Relax. And I really don't want to underestimate the part of this. Go out with friends. Excellent. What else? Read a book. Watch a funny movie. Bullet journal. Read a fun novel. Watch Hallmark shows with happy endings. Sit in the backyard watching clouds. I remember when I was a kid talking to a friend from LA, and they had no idea what it was like to sit in the backyard, look up and see white fluffy clouds and try to figure out what it was. He goes, in LA, they didn't have white fluffy clouds when he was a kid. So pollution has improved somewhat. A journal, a tiny gratitude book, talk to my spouse, friends, people I trust, go for a hike, eat chocolate. Oh, I like the chocolate. This is good. This is really important. We really underestimate the power of doing exactly what you're putting on the screen. And NAPIMA believes very strongly. So we have training programs. We work with community-based organizations. There are a lot of things that we do, but in one of our things, in our Achieving Whole Health, one of the things that we really talk about is self-care. And it's actually really nice when we break it down to, instead of these big kinds of projects, it's doing, again, exactly what you're doing. Because this is eminently doable. You just sit in the backyard, you sit in the sunshine, we put an umbrella if it's raining, and you get a massage. You write in your journal, you read something that's fun. You're tired of work, binge watch your favorite television program. These are really, really excellent. And the more you can do this, to put this into your routine, you can begin to actually change what you're doing. You can change how good you feel. Again, the body and the mind, you cannot separate them. So when you go for a hike, you're actually increasing oxygen, you're getting adrenaline going, you're getting exercises, you can, you might be a little sore the next day, but eventually you're going to feel much better. You're going to sleep better. These are all things. Going out with friends. We are social animals. COVID-19 has really, really impacted both our ability and our comfort with socializing. And so we're hearing, again, talking to our colleagues and friends around the country. People are nervous about going back to work. They're nervous about being with friends. Is it safe? Those are the things that we now have to shift a little bit how we do it. If you're not comfortable, wear a mask, make sure that you're vaxxed and you're boosted. But that doesn't mean we can't do it. So just think about, okay, what is the current situation looking like and what can you do? And I keep coming back to eat chocolate because I'm a chocoholic with the best of them. So is there anything there that kind of strikes you in particular, Allison?
Yeah, no, I just think like the mix of all these things is really great, and definitely stuff that I incorporate into my routine when I'm practicing self-care. And I think just the idea that all these things are really accessible to folks and is really important. And like DJ said, just remembering that these are things that we can do, fairly frequently that we don't always think of as self-care, but are important parts of our routines.
And one of the reasons, whenever I do a training and we talk about why is it so difficult for self-care, this is actually an important question, and I'm very guilty of this. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, it's not that important. Oh, I'll just wait until tomorrow. Oh, I just feel like a little whiny. I really shouldn't be doing that. We need to stop doing that. So these are just some of the things about why do we do that. It doesn't take very much time. And you just get into the routine, just a few minutes a day. It really, really does change and change. So what seems like just a very simple little, a simple thing like just self-care, do it every day. This can be as much of your mental health as anything else. So really, really appreciate it and be very mindful of the fact that COVID-19 has literally changed our world. But if we take advantage of it, we can be maybe a little more mindful, be a little more sensitive. What are the things that we need to do? Being aware that if somebody is, if they're immunocompromised, that we're making sure that we're sensitive. It's being aware of the others out of ourselves. But really, really appreciate you doing this and continue to just keep adding on to this. So the next one, I think the resources.
Yeah, I think with this question, if you're part of our organization, we love to know, your organization's needs. And then if you're an individual, we'd love to know kind of what would be helpful for you as an individual in terms of different resources that you seek or that you see others wanting. And yeah, so feel free to start adding. It's on the third page for folks that are on the Jamboard.
Whenever I ask this question, when I work with CBOs in the country, I can guarantee the first response is money. We need resources, but it's true. And then, so the question would be, what do you need the resources for? And this is where you get to be really creative. It's been really fun working with CBOs. Some of the things that they're asking the money for, and you can do it if you're working with youth. Are there projects you want to work on? Some of the others you're talking about, resources to train and hire interpreters, getting paraprofessionals. So just take a few minutes. We'd really like to hear, because again, we take to heart whatever information you give us. When I'm writing projects, we're providing technical assistance. I really do listen to this. And it gives me permission to go begging. So if I'm talking to the feds or I'm talking to somebody else, this is what the community told me. This is what we need. Good. This is good. Okay. So we've got funding for outreach and community engagement. Schools need to reach youth and family on mental health awareness. That is because on NPR and so many other programs, there's so much having to do with that one. Training support for non-clinical volunteers. Yeah. The training of paraprofessionals. Actually, all of these comments up here right now. One of the, and we're seeing you that Valerie Minakawa was saying that mental health partners training to recognize warning. So this is really good because if you're doing things, we would like to know about it. So there are things that NPIMA is doing, but we also want you to recognize what others who are on this call are doing. And that's the reason why part of the reason we're doing this. So if you've got information, if you can put we'll put NPIMA's information on how you can contact us. But if you've got information, we're going to also write that down so that we can begin to share resources across all of you. So we've got mental health partners in Colorado. They offer free training to recognize the signs. Oh, and Harry has to leave. I'm glad you joined us, Harry. He runs the Asian Pacific Development Center in Denver, and it's an excellent organization. Oh, we just sort of shifted gears here a little bit here. I'm not sure what, but one of the things about support for non-clinical volunteers, this again is something that NPIMA has always believed very strongly in. All the policy papers saying in order to reduce disparities, we have to increase access to care. And it's almost like a little mantra every time I write a grant or policy paper or anything. And it follows with, unfortunately, for many of our communities, there is very little for them to access. There are excellent programs throughout the country, but there aren't enough of them. And we cannot wait for our community members to get their PhDs, their MSWs, their MDs, their advanced degrees. And there's no guarantee that graduate school is going to make you culturally competent. The community members are an untapped resource, and I continually look to them to provide training, to be able to make sure that they get the training and the resources to support them. Because oftentimes we've seen people get the training, the agencies don't have the money to reimburse them, to pay for their services, and we lose them and they go to other large organizations where they don't get to work with our communities. So again, looking at volunteers, I really, really enjoy that one. Going to schools, that is a huge, huge part. Going back to the last conversation, we're seeing a lot of the challenges there with how we're addressing the issues. Yeah, I like that. Yes, I do. Communities, they are an untapped resource. It's one of my very favorite. This is why I enjoy doing the work, is when I get to work with the communities. I learn as much as hopefully I give back. And it really is, we won't have time today, but maybe one of these days, there's a really fun things that they have done. I'll actually share with you a couple as these things are coming in. There's some communities where their healing was done through fishing. Another one was through cooking. Another was through dancing. Talked to some of the kids in Hawaii. They went canoeing. These are lots of ways. And I think maybe we'll have, if we do another session like this, but really begin to tell you how you take these events. So if you're writing a grant, the way that you talk about it, because if you just say, oh, we're going to do this because it's fun, they're not going to give you money. But if you talk about it, reduces isolation. It engages people who've been traumatized. It allows them to be able to work across generations to break down those barriers. It's a way to be able to see their culture in a different light, and that culture is a way for them to heal. That's the language that you want, but those are the things that are fun that you're not necessarily going to see if you go down. What are the best practices programs out there? I can tell you they really do work because our communities are doing them, but we just don't have enough research to prove it, but we do know that it works. More research on intersectionality, experience of race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality. Thank you. There is, when we talk about racism, we look at genders, all these as mental health issues. It's oftentimes the stress that different subpopulations are going through that creates the mental health issues. It's not being of a particular sexual orientation or particular race or ethnicity or gender. That isn't what causes it. It's the social reaction to that person that makes it difficult to claim who they are. It's not safe. So it's really important to be able to look, when we talk about that as mental health issue, we're not blaming it to say, oh, you are fill in the blank and that's your problem. It's like, no, I'm fine being fill in the blank. The problem is how I'm received, not received, how I'm perceived, etc. Culture relevant practitioners, bringing awareness to mental health. Again, many of our communities define mental health very, very differently. These are really, really good. And again, we're keeping tracks of all these. I don't know if you wanted to comment on any of those, Allison.
Yeah, I think just recognizing like if there are a lot of therapists or counselors applying, like what are ways that we can leverage other folks or volunteers or peer specialists to help, fill that void while we're trying to build up a workforce. And just creative ways of thinking of how to solve some of the problems and work with our communities to address mental health.
It's just sort of, we're in the development stage, but if you want to talk about the Friends Who Make a Difference instead of the pipeline with what we're doing with UC Denver.
Sure, yeah. So one of the projects we'll be working on this summer and launching is called Friends Who Make a Difference, which is a curriculum that we've run with college students in the past, but we're expanding to high school students in the coming year, which I'm really excited about because we know that suicide is a really big concern for students from the ages of like 15 to 24 in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. So this program really focuses on providing resources to high school students to be support systems for their friends, because we know oftentimes friends are sometimes the best support for some of these students. And so it doesn't replace obviously having a counselor or a professional, but it just gives them the tools to be able to hopefully talk about mental health and destigmatize it and have these open conversations with folks around them. So we'll be working with high school students this summer and then throughout the semester. And we're also partnering with the University of Colorado, Denver to bring on some college students who are going to act as coaches to the high school students while they're doing a community-based project around mental health, which we're really excited about. So if folks are interested in learning more about the program or partnering with us, we'd love for you to reach out to us. We'll put our information in the chat towards the end of this, but we're really excited about kind of just opportunities it opens up to connect youth to these conversations around mental health and hopefully provide some resources that they're not receiving within their schools. So, and yeah, I see some other pieces around funding to bridge cultural and spirituality in the Western mental health practices, which yeah, definitely is something that we advocate for and hope we can see more of in the future as well.
And because I think when we're looking at cultural practices and cultural spirituality in all the different forms, one of the things that Asian American, Native and Pacific Islanders are consistent, and other communities of color, but since our primary focus is on the AANHPI populations, but again, if you look through there, the research is either fails to acknowledge or to look at the things that we're doing, the things that are working. We're either seen as just Asian Americans without disaggregating the data, or we are just missing altogether in the research. So those are really important pieces there, because that's also lets us know what works, what doesn't work. But we believe very strongly, and I really, really agree, and I appreciate that comment on research, that the research is really important in terms of what are the questions that we ask, who asks the questions, and when you get the answers, who is interpreting the answers? Because if you fail to understand the community at any level, my basic comment is garbage in, garbage out. You asked the wrong question. Well, just bag it right there. You've asked the right questions, you ask it the wrong way. You ask the right questions, you ask it the right way, but whoever is interpreting the data doesn't know what they're looking at, and they totally misrepresent it. So again, getting the community engaged at all levels of whether it's developing programs, doing research, is really, really an important piece there. And so
well, maybe for the last 10 minutes or so, we can just hear if folks want to share.
Yes.
So I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully everyone still has access to the Jamboard, and feel free to continue adding, different ideas that you all have. But we'd really love to hear from folks that are joining us today, if they have any, projects or ideas around collaboration that they'd like to share, or programs that they're working on. So if folks want to unmute or just share in the chat, then we can read them out. But again, we'd love to hear about some of the programs or things that you're working on, so we can, figure out ways that we can collaborate and continue moving this conversation forward beyond just the month of May.
And as you're doing it, the other thing that we want to do is, as we're expanding our website, we'll put together a form that is just very basic, the contact information, what your project is, who your intended audience is. Are these with elders? Are these with single moms? Are these with adolescents between the ages of 15, whatever? And then just a brief description of what it is, because what we really want to do is, as people are going to our website, they can go, oh, this is a great project out in Salt Lake, or did you see what they're doing in Boston? I love the project that they're doing in Waianae, Hawaii. So we are going to, I think, really sort of going back to the people who've been to some of our different sessions and asking folks to really just do a little write-up. So we'll provide the format for this. And then it'd be really fun if you've got any little videos, anything. We really want to be sort of a repository of what the community is doing. So is there anybody there that would like to share? Because I didn't see any hands go up. And really would like to hear what you were doing. Yes, Lukey. I'm not sure if I said that right, but if you could tell us, we're just going to have you do it.
Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Thank you for having this workshop or this Zoom call. It's amazing to hear different aspects and perspectives from everyone. So my adult job, I work at First Bank here in Colorado. But also I am serving on the board for AREA, that's Asian Real Estate Association of America. And with my profession, I have encountered with professionals from just the different real estate industries. And I think the mental health piece was often ignored because of the business industry and just everyone's go. It's very rare for people to actually make time for themselves to do self-care. And then to a point that it was the last couple of months that I had a conversation with some realtors or just lenders in general who were communicating with me regarding them going through mental challenges and also physical challenges that were internalized from those external workforce. To figure out a way to provide some free workshops on behalf of AREA to engage mental health practitioners or just the trainers to do some free workshops, some support group meetings to provide to the real estate professionals as well. So I have reached out thanks to some of my friends. They told me about this directory. So I have reached out to some independent practitioners here in Denver to see if I can partner with them and figure out the logistics and see if we can actually partner together to have a workshop to provide to a bigger group of audience and community.
Yeah. And that, so if you're interested in doing kind of like engaging some of your colleagues, we'd be glad to talk to you about some possibilities. And there's another person, Dr. Rochelle Espiritu, who is head of Change Matrix, and she and I have done a lot of workshops, listening sessions together. And so maybe trying to find out what would be the best way to move forward for you and with the other realtors and exactly what you're looking for. But I think that the issue of there's a lot of stress and people just really don't know how to talk about it. It's a real important issue. And so if that's something you're interested in, again, we'll put our contact information out there. We'd be glad to follow up with you.
Love it. I will love it. The reason the conversation was brought up also, it was I was on my way to see my therapist for the very first time actually, and I was talking to a realtor on the phone, and I said, I have to go. I have to see my doctor in 10 minutes. And the doctor, and then the realtor was like, oh, like what happened? I was like, well, I'm going to this mental health therapist. And then the realtor all of a sudden said, you know what? I am looking forward myself. Which one do you go to? So that's how the conversation was brought up, because I was being transparent about who I was about to see. If that wasn't brought up in the communication, then we both didn't know actually something was going on in our head. So once we had that discussion, we were much more bonded, because we know that actually deep inside, outside of the business, we're actually going through something that's very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that really speaks to one of the stickiness we saw earlier. Like, two of us, like, just talking about our own experiences with therapy or with other forms of mental health services can be a really powerful tool to encourage other people to also, talk about their mental health journeys, or to reach out for assistance if they need it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think the more that we let people know that it is something that's helping me, and it's really important, then that's how we get rid of the stigma, and we make it safe. And it's basically normalize it. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, Wiki. Yeah, and there is a comment there from Jamie that says, love the idea of bringing mental health. So Jamie, I don't know if you want to just unmute yourself and respond back to that, because I liked what you put in the chat.
Oh yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, I just here, I'll start my video so you can see my face. Yeah, I just really wouldn't have thought like, oh right, like real estate agents, yeah, they're humans. They have really stressful jobs, and like what a great way to like access a whole group of people with mental health conversations. So yeah, that's awesome.
Great. So you've started something, Wiki. This is really good. Thank you. Anybody else? Got a few minutes left and want to make sure that we hear from everyone. And again, I really, really want you to share. Valerie.
Hi, I'm Valerie. I'm the one who posted about the QPR training. It's called Question, Persuade, and Refer. And it's just 2 hours online. And many of you know how to do basic CPR, first aid. You know how to swim and save yourself in a lake. And I think that QPR is just as important. It's basically like how to listen to someone if they're starting to talk about what's disturbing them and bothering them, and you recognize the signs and how to help that person. You are not the solution, but you learn how to listen, how to engage, and how to refer your friend, your coworker, your family relative to help. Usually when we get into a situation where someone talks disturbingly about something, maybe suicidality, by that time, if we don't know what to do, it's already too late. So I think like CPR and learning basic first aid, I think QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer, is extremely important. This is a virtual class. It takes place on Mountain Time in Colorado, but because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, this Thursday's class is free. And my link is in the chat, so you can access that. And public schools, some community rec centers, they offer this class, QPR. It's common throughout the country. It's a national standard of mental training. So I recommend at any point in your life, maybe not this year, but maybe next year, definitely take QPR. It was very life-changing for me to take that, and other kinds of training too. Yes, thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Valerie. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that resource. Hopefully folks can access it in the chat.
Yeah, and that really is, and again, it's something that anybody can take advantage of and use, and it's really important. So again, really do thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Any thoughts or anything?
Hi, this is
Vicky. Yes.
Yes, hi, I'm actually from Asian Pacific Family Center. Hi, DJ.
Oh, hello, how are you?
Hi. I do want to share, this is out there in the community, and I don't know how to harness the kind of the power of the organizing piece, but I'm noticing a lot of information being shared via Facebook.
Mhm.
You know, where the Asian Mental Health Collective have definitely launched its coalition building through that. And then several other Facebook chains have really started sharing information amongst the private practitioners. I have this group, I have that group, you know, and I really want to see how do we get our community folks that are doing this, to be plugged in, to be part of that circle of exchanging information.
Mhm.
But for me during the pandemic, that was the one thing that I stumbled into it, and I learned, wow, it exploded in terms of people supporting each other,
It did. Yeah.
as well as people getting connected to services in that way. And I thought it was beautiful because you all of a sudden brought in artists and other folks that are in other arenas to speak out on that, topic. But we need to, how do we bridge that from Facebook and into beyond is kind of the challenge.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really one of the things that we're trying to work with our different partners to do exactly that, so that we build on what's being done with social media, but it's also being able to do in person, or just sort of expanding it so that it goes beyond just sort of a brief interaction. And we'll definitely keep in touch with you. And for those of you, Vicki is over with APFC, which is Asian Pacific Family Center in Rosemead, California. It's an excellent organization that has done really, really wonderful work for many years in the community. And so I actually would love to just keep this conversation going and, tapping into the things that you're doing and that APFC has been very, very successful at. So to be continued, absolutely. Anybody else? Because we are sort of coming into, I think, the top of the hour now. I think with that, we'd like to just sort of thank you very, very much for joining us for this entire month of May. But as Allison said, that the month of May is ending, but not the work that NAPIMO is doing and working with all of you. And we really enjoy very much the fact that you've joined us on numerous conversations. As Allison was talking about, there are a lot of projects, some we've been doing for years, others are brand new, and we're very, very excited about that. So I'm going to let Allison have the last word on this, but I just want to say thank you very much for joining us. I really, really, really just thoroughly appreciate being there. And we've got some great notes, and we will truly take to heart everything that you said.
Yeah.
Allison?
Yeah, just thank you all so much for your input today and participating. And again, if you all want to check out the other sessions, if you're unable to join the other sessions we had that we mentioned at the beginning of this session, please check out our website and our YouTube page. They're really powerful sessions, in my opinion, and kind of give a great overview of what the team has been working on and different projects that people can engage in. But yeah, and feel free to reach out to us. Hopefully everyone got our information in the chat. There's resources or programs you'd like us to share, please just let us know and we're happy to do so. And yeah, also, throw everyone else's, if you want to throw your email, if you want to connect with other folks on this call, feel free to do so as well. Yeah, with that, I think just happy end of AANHPI Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. And again, let's figure out ways we can keep the conversation going beyond this month. So thank you all for joining today. We really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.